should really be the one that's like benefiting off of this.
Corey, please.
Yeah, so I'm generally pretty staunchly against, let's say, capital punishment for like one on principle, and two because I think it's a poor deterrence. At least from what I can see, at most it's a modest deterrence. But maybe being forced to be a fast food worker, that might be barbaric enough to actually serve as a deterrence. I don't know. I'm open to that. But sort of somewhat jokes aside, I do have I have concerns about this in terms of like incentivizing incarcerating people for like access to free labor and forced labor. But I'm open to the idea in terms of it being effective. And even though, let's say, I trust Lactoid's research ability greater than Gibbs, no offense to him, I'm still a little bit suspicious on the empirics of it. And so if he wants to post it, I'd be more than happy to see it. But if the empirics check out, I pretty much more inclined to lean towards like what Ali just outlined of like I'd probably more want to reserve it for like actual violent offenders, and probably not fast food worker as like the go-to, and probably something more in the actual public good. And I'll leave it there for now.
Let's go to Katya.
Okay, so my opinion on this is I'm definitely like not against people in prison, having jobs, and those who are able to work, having to do something while they're in there. My main big huge problem with it is that it benefits the private sector in this manner, because prison is supposed to be there to keep people out of society and enhance the social good. There shouldn't be this idea that they're in there and them being in there benefits another industry. This also disincentivizes any type of worker benefits or any type of raise in wages for those who are outside of prison, because they can just get people who are incarcerated. That shouldn't be an option for them. If they have problems getting labor, they should have to freaking raise their wages, considering that a lot of these businesses, they're making record profits. Like, they should have to do things the old-fashioned way, actually compete in the market instead of get slaves to do their work.
Let's go to our friend.
Okay. So I like the idea of people who have been incarcerated for a crime working off their sentences. And it's actually something that I would find more ideal for like non-violent offenders to actually just have to like work off their crimes rather than being in a jail cell. But as for like the system that we have it today, I don't find much of a problem with it. The main problem I have is I found from the video that was attached to the article, a lot of these people who are working these jobs and stuff, they end up being denied parole. And I think anybody who is able to work, and then they're even offered sometimes like 72 hours to go home and spend with their families, they do make like some of the money, which is like another question, where is the money going? But I think anybody who should be working for these or is allowed to work for these programs in jail should be eligible for parole too, if they're safe enough to go out into the world and work and like go home for 72 hours without being like viewed by the prison system or whatever, then they should be eligible for parole too. So it's kind of like an incentive to keep them from being let go, because now they have like free work and stuff. So I think there's a few kinks in the system to work out, but yeah, I don't think overall it's that terrible of an idea. It just needs to be better like worked out.
Okay. And our friend Aiko.
Yeah, so I just thought about this, like Manafort, Stone, Arpaio, Bannon, they could have all gotten together and started a fast food chain in prison, call it, I don't know, the Felons Falafels, something like that. But seriously, if Trump is himself found guilty and sent to prison, I think that's probably the best shot that we have at prison reform, because all of a sudden conservatives will find common cause with the way that we treat prisoners. Like, would they stand for it if Trump himself was forced to work in things like this, if the 13th Amendment was used against him? I think probably not. I think people would be changing their mind in large amounts, or even just like for the first time actually considering the issue in large amounts. So I think probably this has a lot to do with the fact that we just don't feel empathy for people who are in prison, and maybe it would take something like that to change it. However, I do think having the opportunity to work if you're in prison is something that I don't think prisoners would like to lose that opportunity just because of the fear of exploitation that we're talking about, right? So I think the very last part of the question about can we regulate it and make sure that these are jobs that give them actually gainful employment and give them skills and opportunities for when they get out of prison so that they can sort of move up. I think to that extent, in the same way, I'd like to see education used more with prisoners as well. Prisoners, by the way, will often take to reading like fish to water once they're in prison because there's literally no other form of entertainment. And that sort of opportunity has helped them get like jailhouse law degrees and things like that. So I think that there can be opportunities for prisoners. But if they're, if a lot of that money is just going right back to the prison, and these people are being released broke and without any ability to have gainful employment, they're going to fall right back into a life of crime. And I tend to favor the rehabilitation model of incarceration. So to the extent that I do think career development could be a priority, but you absolutely need regulations for that because you can't trust these the private sector entities to do the right thing when it comes to that.
Open to the panel.
The only concern, I understand the concern about like having them open to private industries. That was sort of, I think two of you, I think it was Ollie and Aiko, both mentioned a concern with that. The problem is like and Katya. The problem with that is though the research indicates that specifically going out into the world and working for like a company is like superior. It's superior. Like it leads to superior empirical outcomes than like being behind a wall, like churning out license plates. So
yeah, I agree. It's just I just don't want McDonald's to be the one
regular.
benefiting. Like that's really all it is. I agree that it's better for them to go out, work, do real jobs, build skills. It's just I just don't want it to be at McDonald's or something like that. In the same way that I don't want McDonald's to be using computers to outsource workers. Like I just don't like that. If you want to do that, I think like the smartest way would be like put them to work in like construction or something where our tax dollars are the things paying for like the job that's being done. So like it'd be plowing, tree removal, whatever the fuck it may be.
Get them certifications.
Yeah, building
actual
roads,
stuff that requires
something that's
skills.
worth it. They're getting they'll be able to train. It'll be government, like we already have taxes, so the government's already paying for it. So it can be a government program. You could hire people to watch them, so you have guards that are watching them do the jobs because you can't just like let them out into the world. Unfortunately, they are going to have to go to jail. But maybe for people that are doing this like this type of jail, like they have like like more European style like jails where it's like, like Norway or whatever the fuck it is, Sweden, where it's like maybe it's not the worst living conditions. These are people that are working off their debt. They're benefiting society to a greater good. They're also learning a skill, potentially a better chance of being reformed. I just think it works better if you. I just don't really need McDonald's and Burger King to be the ones that like, or Walmart to be like benefiting off of this. That's really it.
I don't see why not. But
Gotcha.
I just want them to Katya's point. I just really do want like these fucking companies to start playing. Like we don't have a free market anymore. If like the largest companies get to just hire robots and prisoners to not pay anybody to work, and then like everyone else just can't really compete with that because they don't have access to these programs.
Well, then the skilled
Minimum
jobs will
wage,
be
yeah.
taken by
They have
prisoners
to pay them.
too.
They have to pay them the federal minimum wage, and then they take 40% off the top of that.
Yeah, the government's going to be
and
making
then there
money.
are additional fees involved in this after that.
Yeah.
So
yeah, because they're getting free living,
problem
right?
is Nobody, right? But here's the thing: nobody who's outside of there, even in that area, everybody who's not imprisoned, none of them are getting $7.25 an hour. Literally, none of them. No way
they're
is
not gonna be able to
anybody
work
taking
anymore.
that.
That's the minimum wage.
and you're just replacing-
Nobody
and
is
you're-
going to take that who isn't
Lactoid.
incarcerated.
I've explained this to
Yeah,
you. There's a
but hold on,
problem.
but this is supply and demand. Like I'm not going to
So with
hire. I'm not going to hire an
undercut-
inmate. Right, I'm not going to hire an inmate unless I can hire them from cheap.
Yeah,
right?
I know, but then here's the problem: you hire the inmates, you have the robots. I understand, like the point, the benefit to the business. I understand supply and demand. I agree with you. that ends up targeting the local community, which it ends up being like you're bringing in immigrants and hiring them to do jobs, and then the people in the local communities are kind of fucked
Yeah,
out of a
that's
job
fine.
because well, I mean, it's not fine
It's
because
good.
once again, if you have no
Immigrants
one
are
in
good for the GDP.
if people in the community aren't working, right? If you don't have people in the community working because their jobs are being taken over by inmates at lower rates,
The
then you
empirics
don't
are
have-
against the empirics on this. Like, you got to be careful with this because
Well,
the
no.
the immigration empirics are pretty good.
Immigrants coming to
Immigration?
is beneficial towards the GDP. I agree with you. I'm talking about taxable jobs that are low skill, low
They're getting a
income.
lot. They're getting taxed a lot.
Wait, they are getting taxed differently. I'm saying about getting a legal job within like a Walmart, a McDonald's, a Burger King, so on and so forth, where you're getting paid a check and you're verified. They run a background check on you. These jobs, if you end up losing them out because you have legal workers who happen to be inmates, right, within the community, you now eliminate a magnitude of jobs for people, like a lot of jobs. Fast food, groceries, and like I mean, you can say that, but like most people in your town are going to be working minimum wage jobs. They're going to be working at your fast food places, your restaurants, your grocery stores, your Home Depots.
Let me
exactly the jobs that immigrants would take, right?
let me
No,
testify to
they
this.
aren't.
This is
No.
let me tell you in a
Immigrants
way
take
in
jobs that they
which
don't need documentation
actually-
for. Like, are you
let
talking
me
about
tell you in a
illegal
way in
immigrants?
which this
So
actually
they'd be
harms
forced to raise the wages.
let's
that
go
they're
to-
paying.
this
I-
harms red states and benefits blue states in one particular way. I used to work for like a large co-op corporation, the REI. We had retail stores in all over probably in all 50 states. And what happened was we had to deal with like increases in minimum wage in places like California, for instance. But in order to not confuse the consumer, our prices stayed the same in all of the different states, which meant that states where we paid workers a lot less, like in red states, we ended up subsidizing our stores in California in places with much higher minimum wage rates, so that the red states that had lower wages basically lost out because they were paying a higher rate than they should have to pay, like for their goods and services and stuff. And California was paying less than what those larger wages
And
like
then
would
they should have to
normally force
pay?
them to pay. Yeah, it ended up meaning that states that pay lower wages, the people in those communities or whatever were subsidizing
No,
the bluer states.
There's going to
And
be
I
a
think
trade-off, right, Aiko?
when you
Because
have that kind of exploitation, you have to have other places where that exploitation isn't happening, and that's when you have this sort of like unequal distribution of benefits.
it also encourages more industry to move into areas where wages are more affordable, right? Like California is like losing people and industry, and the southern states are gaining people and industry for a
Now,
reason.
we kept opening stores in California, and part of the reason that we could was because of the low wages we were paying elsewhere.
I mean, look, like maybe for your specific company, but I'm saying generally speaking, right? There is like a shift of industry and people from California and New York, et cetera, to the Sun Belt. There's reasons for that. More
California's
politically-
GDP is still growing. It's not shrinking.
But see, California is still California.
The
You just have
the
a
overall
small
the
Or I should
overall
say
GDP,
GSP.
the overall that could be true, but again, there is still a movement of industry and people from California to
to southern states,
southern states,
Florida,
right?
and Texas, yeah.
Because of like the political situation there, and because wages are more affordable in those areas, and the employment law isn't as ridiculous. Trust
Well,
me.
it's the taxes. They're getting.
There's also
getting less fucked
taxes,
on
right?
taxes. The wages aren't much lower. Like in Florida and in Texas, they aren't much lower than like.
The minimum wage. Hold on, you're right that like because look, very very small percentages of Americans actually get paid anywhere near minimum wage, right?
Yeah.
It's true, like
Which
less
is
than
my
2%.
point.
Well,
Yeah.
I agree, I understand that, but that doesn't necessarily counter my point, which is that there's nothing wrong with having these inmates get paid a minimum wage as like a way to incentivize
mind that.
incentivize businesses to hire them for like these incredibly low skill jobs. In order
Once
to
again,
get
I don't
them
mind that. I
into
just
the
don't want
job
the
market,
private
especially
And
once they get
the-
released.
fewer
Sorry, he's
people-
responding to multiple things. So, like, what, one thing at a time. Like, finish. Are you done with your point, Lactoid?
I mean, I just to I guess reiterate the end part because I don't know if it was caught. Like the goal here is to like look at the empirics, and if the empirics demonstrate like letting people go out in the private industry is like good. The concern I have with saying, well, no, you can't pay the minimum wage. We have to like come up with some ways that you've got to pay them. If I'm a business owner, unless it's actually advantageous for me money wise to hire like this prisoner, this felon, I'm not gonna I'm
Well,
not, because why would I want to deal with that as opposed
that's
to
the problem. You're not the business owner that has access to this like program, right? So like, I don't think any of us are really give a fuck if the inmates get paid minimum wage or not. I don't think that's our argument is that
they are concerned. Katya is
wait,
concerned. Aiko's
no,
concerned.
wait.
I'm
The concern
concerned
is
first.
that the private sector then won't hire anybody at the rate that they've been paying
The
people
market
because
rate.
they have access to this. That's why we have a problem with a company like McDonald's or Walmart having access to this, is because then you're just going to turn around, not hire any of the people that live in your community. You're just going to have, and you're the only person who has access to this program, right? So then therefore, like, really, it's just like it's anti-capitalist, I guess. To her point, it's like they need to participate in a free market, and they're not, because they have access to now AI, robots, and then inmates on top of that. So it's like,
Can
you
I?
just, yeah,
Let me just ask you a question then. Would you be okay with this? Would you be okay with this then if instead of these retail jobs, the program was specifically for agricultural jobs,
I
like
said
the
that.
kinds that, sure, like the kinds that immigrants are coming into the country to occupy. So you'd be okay with like
Yeah.
large groups of like farm prison workers like
I
roaming
said
around picking strawberries.
not specifically, not
company,
into
no.
one specific industry, but I listed a bunch of industries where I think they'd be preferred into.
Oh,
So
okay,
like
okay. So your question is just like
where they're
things.
being taken. Yeah.
Frankly, and the reason why is because whether or not English is important or not to the actual job. So, like the primarily English-speaking jobs, you wouldn't want these jobs taken from like the people in that area. So you would want to put them in like the kind of jobs that are normally taken by like immigrants.
I understand the point, but
Let's
Yeah,
go.
these jobs aren't offered to like all inmates either, so it's not like the McDonald's is totally filled with all inmate workers. So maybe like a solution would be like capping the amount of like each restaurant could hire from a prison, so that it wouldn't kill the competition for regular people.
Or we only allow small business to do it to give them an advantage.
Here's my big red
that would
flag.
work for me.
My giant red flag with this, the sentence that I've
Once
seen.
it gets big enough, they just get fired.
They get moved over like a temp
Yeah,
agency.
let's let
There's
Katya.
no
Sorry.
incentive for them to do a good
Listen.
job. Like, let's keep it a small business.
Let's let Katya get
No,
in.
they just go over to the next
Can
business.
Let's Katya, please. Let's let Katya finish, please.
My big red flag that I see when I, read this article, saw the prompt, is their reason for doing it. They said because, like, basically, no one wants to work anymore. Why does nobody want to work anymore? Is the unemployment in this area zero? Like, it isn't. The problem is that they aren't paying competitive wages. And they're like, oh, nobody wants to work anymore. And now all of a sudden they can hire prisoners to undercut the labor market even more. Like, it's outrageous. And then it's going to result in the individuals in this community having less money to put in the economy, while these businesses that are national businesses, sometimes transnational businesses, are getting more money in their central apparatus, which is sucking money out of the community.
Right, that's the other problem. Where is all, because the prisoners are only getting paid like 40% of the actual wage. So where's the rest of the money going?
Well, 60% because 40% is being taken, and there's some extra fees, I guess. So it could be as low as 40%. The rest of it's going to pay for the cost of housing them, providing them medical care, providing them food. Right? We
Just going to the prison.
Yeah,
Just
the
going
average
towards
cost.
the prison.
The average cost of a prisoner is like what? Like almost $80,000. It could be more than that now with inflation. And that all comes out of your wallets, right? That all comes out of all of our wallets. So I think it makes sense to.
So McDonald's not profiting off of it?
McDonald's
still-
could be profiting, yeah.
The problem is that there's programs that would be cheaper than incarceration that would lower recidivism and lower as much of a, need for incarceration. But incarceration is profitable. Like, for example, drug treatment programs, for example, those types of things, mental health related things to keep people out of trouble. And some of those are more cost effective if you're not factoring in this like benefit of having people incarcerated. I think that this incentivizes people to be incarcerated for things they probably don't need to be in there for, and they're in there longer than they need to be in there for.
Well, yeah, if the average cost to keep an inmate alive is $80,000 a year, how does it like make an argument that people are living off $30,000 a year, right? Like basically inmates are making more already, and in terms of like their cost of living. than the average American. Like, so no, for them to like get out and work on top of it, like for the prison to just make more money and McDonald's to just make more money, while average people that are just living lives are like at the suffer
The
of
prisons
this.
aren't making money. Yeah, the prisons aren't making money. Like the prisons are not like, I think 8% of American prisons are private. The vast majority are public. And those 8%, their profit margin is entirely from government contracts in which the government gives them oodles of money to house the inmates. Actually housing the inmates is not profitable. You do not make money doing that. It is always going to be a net cost to the taxpayer, which is why having them work is a way to somewhat recoup some of the costs. Now, drug court and other treatment programs, I'm fine with. I think those would be great. In fact, I'd be fine with maybe putting some guardrails on here where it's like, for those kind of crimes, perhaps we don't allow this kind of work. But at the same time, like I struggle with that too, because if working is empirically, again, based on the research I've posted in the group chat, and Corey, you can challenge me on it in just 1 second, right? But based on the research I've seen, I wouldn't want to deny like drug users a potential to get better, right? But go ahead, Corey, if you got a problem with that.
I just wanted to put a little asterisk of like of the research you provided in the chat so far, in the Discord chat. From what I understand, that's research based off of workers that are volunteering to work and not forced labor. Just want to.
It's the it's the PIEC program compared to like people who aren't working, out of work, or traditional industries. And so PIECP is people going out into the private sector. They have the best empirical results. Then there's TI. They're people who are like working, like, you know, behind the walls of the prison, like making license plates, for example. They're like slightly better off. And then the out of work prisoners just they have the worst results. There is kind of like a correlation versus causation question. From what I've seen, people like the researchers, I guess there's no way to know for sure, like the actual split between the causation versus correlation, because the whole point here is it's coerced work, right? Like even in the article, the Jacobin article that was provided by Prime, like if the inmates were like screaming at McDonald's and like knocking over the ice cream machine, like they wouldn't be working. Like they would just not be working. You can argue that there's penalties for that, and so it is coerced work. But that's the same kind of coerced work that also has these empirical benefits, according to the research.
Yeah, but from what I understand, like they're not following, like, let's say what you, well, not maybe
they're not whipped.
Yeah, that like it's not. Well, I mean, like, yeah, like I don't
it's
want to get
coerced,
about. Yeah,
but they're not whipped.
Yeah. So where it's like you
should try whipping them and see how that works.
You're not fully opposed to the whipping part. I think that might be what it is.
I'm not opposed to the whipping part for murderers, child rapists, and people like convicted of specific kinds of extremely violent assault. For like petty theft, shit like that, I don't think that sort of work motivation is justified.
Yeah, fair enough. But so yeah, I'd be like, if for that, what you outlined, like I would want to see the empirics of that actual truly forced work.
I would too, because, but just to be clear, if like let's say we implemented lactoid system and like it turned out that was empirically bad, then I would just stop the program and we just go back to exactly what we've been doing here, which is essentially coerced work, not forced in the way that we're talking about, but like you're sort of kind of pushed into the position and you can't really leave, right? Because you're a prisoner. And look, if you're a drug addict, you're shooting up heroin, like getting full-time employment is and like getting into that system as opposed to just sitting around doing nothing all day, it's probably good for you. It's probably a good thing to get back into that sort of routine. I think getting in a routine is one of the best things you can do for a prisoner.
Right,
yeah,
so-
but you probably wouldn't incarcerate a heroin user anyways, right?
I wouldn't, unless like there was another crime that the heroin use was associated with, like if they stole money and like we did something, like we looked at it, like
use itself in and of itself,
in of itself. But I think that like addressing drug problems can be critical for preventing recidivism. So if you have somebody who's stealing cars, the reason they're stealing cars is because they're buying heroin. Well, then part of fixing this person from stealing cars is to get them off the heroin, right?
Right.
Fair.
I think that honestly, like, oh, my cat is throwing stuff on the floor. I think that honestly, one thing about this that I am concerned about is, especially when this stuff is happening, when people aren't like gonna be there forever and ever. Because obviously, if people are gonna be there forever and ever, I know you could make the cost argument, but I think that if they're having people who are in their last year, in their last 2 years, working at these like ridiculously low wages, I think that it's kind of counterproductive. Honestly, if they're going to be working, which they should, I think that's for the best that they should be, then at a certain part from the amount of time from the release date, they should start getting paid closer to market wage, and it should be put in an account for them that can be used to put them in a halfway house or put them in somewhere when they leave so that they're not back on the streets and committing crime in 15 minutes. And that could help reduce recidivism, which I'm concerned about these programs because I'm concerned that they disincentivize reducing recidivism in certain ways.
Well,
think
the
the biggest-
problem was, I like the whole eligibility for parole. So they're supposed to be eligible for parole when they're on the program, but in Alabama specifically, they said like if they followed their own guidelines, then 80% of these people would be eligible for parole. But last year it was 8% actually, and that was like that was because they weren't following their own guidelines. And I think it's because they want to keep this like free labor essentially. So I think that's the problem, is that there's too much incentive for these prisons to keep the prisoners incarcerated for the free labor.
I would want to see some kind of safeguard, because even though the best criticism I can think about this policy would be, yes, keeping a prisoner is always going to be a net cost negative to the state, right? But you could, I guess, have a situation where corporations could get together and lobby the government specifically to crack down on crime because they want the cheap labor. That mechanism could exist. So I think that they're like, if those safeguards don't exist, which I think the criminal justice system is generally pretty good at just preventing not guilty people from being arrested and thrown in a cage. It happens occasionally. DOJ estimates about 2%, but strong guardrails on that I'd be in favor of, right? Just like some kind of specific, no, we don't allow lobbying on this particular industry, or like there's constitutional protections, some kind of system put into place. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess it's just that my two main concerns here is this encouraging people to be kept in prison longer, discouraging reducing recidivism, and undercutting the wages of communities that the wealth is extracted out of by the use of this cheap undercutting labor. And then obviously, if you've got a really poor community, guess what's more likely to happen? Crime.
Cheap labor is good. I'm sorry. Like this is like a disagreement we just probably fundamentally have.
Every economist believes so. Just say it.
Not every economist, but the plurality. As with most of my statements, they are economically informed. Okay, rent control is almost uniformly bad. Okay, but this is one of those more convoluted questions, right? Where immigration, the biggest function of immigration really is it's a downward pressure on wages, right? Because people come in that are willing to work for less, and that has positive economic effects, right? Now, if you are more concerned with worker wages than you are with positive economic effects, then you might want to be against immigration if you want to maximize the amount of pressure. Now, and then that's even more complicated because there's also potentially new industries created by immigration that could also positively impact wages. It's a million confounding variables. But generally speaking, immigration does have a downward pressure on wages.
I think this is different with prisons, because prisons tend to be located closer to smaller communities and rural areas in which people, tend to be more like negatively impacted by wages going down. Because obviously there is a time where wages are taken out of the community pretty much, and people are unable to find work that can support them living. And then that's a big concern. Because then you get communities like there are many of where so many people are on assistance, so many people have to be on welfare, everybody's on food stamps. And it's like, hold on, why?
The interesting thing, by the way, is this is like the rural areas not having enough people to fill the jobs is one of the arguments why the Haitians were sent to Springfield, Ohio. It was specifically to fill jobs that there weren't enough people in Springfield, Ohio to fill. And a lot of the animosity towards those immigrants is because they're concerned about the Haitian immigrants having a downward pressure on wages. So even if that's true, I just don't fundamentally believe people have a right to a wage. That a wage is negotiated between you and your employer. And if an immigrant or a prisoner can come in and do the job better than you, it's kind of your fault.
But
It's
as
not
a
my fault.
conservative, you are also against market distortions, right? Like this is clearly not. This isn't like sort of. They're not going to be accepting their wages at a natural point at which, if they were free, they wouldn't accept this job, especially with the 40% haircut that they also take. And so this is like something that's not natural to the markets, that's being introduced into the marketplace, which is all of these workers who are just by the situation of their life being forced into taking this job. Or it's not it doesn't get you to an equilibrium price when it comes to wages.
It's a concern, but again, like there are things that can be positive enough where market equilibrium, like it's not the end all be all, right? Like if all the empirics demonstrate this is good for the prisoner and good for society, and we're already spending a shit ton of tax dollars, which taxing is also disrupting the market equilibrium when we're pulling money away from people who are working. Like offsetting that is also correcting some of the disruption of the market equilibrium occurring there. In fact, it's difficult to even measure what effect this would have, because if we're using this labor to reduce the costs that we're spending on them as prisoners, and then thus we can take off some of the tax pressure or inflationary pressure on the workers, who knows what the actual effect on their wages might be, right?
The tax pressure off of workers without doing that, I don't understand why our tax brackets have to be what they are. Plus, here's my concern too. My concern is can you give me a better explanation exactly of how, if the wages are depressed in an area that, or that improves the area as a whole or the community, like where are we getting that? Can you give me the step-by-step really quick?
So yeah, the concept is, and this is basically essentially the argument for Springfield, Ohio, is you have a community that has, for whatever reason, not enough people to fill the jobs that it has. It has a very low unemployment rate. And because of that, there's a lot of tasks that are going not done, right? Because you can hire people, and you can also raise your wages, right, to attract more people in. But when you rate, like there are certain jobs that simply aren't going to be worth, based on what you can market the services, the amount that you can pay somebody. There's going to be a wage ceiling that's going to be for any kind of task. Now you can obviously just raise your prices to raise that ceiling, raise your overall margins. But if it's a competitive marketplace, like a global competitive marketplace, you might not be able to do that and actually stay competitive because people are going to go ahead and buy the cheaper product. And so all these tasks are not being done. And so what you do is you bring in, either through immigration or through inmates, labor that would fill those tasks at a lower rate, at a lower wage. Now what happens is the tasks are getting done, overall productivity of the area is increasing. If the productivity increases, you have more incentive for investment in that area. So now people are actually building more things in that area because there's more people working and there's overall more productivity happening. Does that have a decreased wage pressure on the people there who otherwise would be able to negotiate higher wages because they're one of the few workers that's left there? It does. It does. But them being able to have that bargaining chip also is bad for productivity in that area and bad for the employers. I agree that ultimately people have a right to their labor and people have a right to hire people. So ultimately, if one person can do the job, you're going to have to pay them $1 million a year and you're just going to have to get over it, right? But if we have a bunch of people to do the job and we can get away with paying them less and we need that job done, then it makes that job more affordable for the general population to have access to.
So when you say it's good for the people, you mean it's good for the
the
business that's coming in
employers.
and getting to take advantage of the people that have to suffer the low wages because you put
It's
them in a
good.
situation where there's lower wages. It's not good for the people that are living there because they have to suffer the lower wages. But overall, the industry gets to come, build new industry in that area, take advantage of the lower wages. So there's a benefit for the city, right? Because the city is getting more, industry, but the people in the city.
So here's who it's a benefit for. It is a benefit for all the other jobs that are going to be created to service the new workers that are coming into any particular
At
industry.
low wages.
Well,
It's-
here's a big concern.
It's also going to be a benefit to all this customers who buy services from that industry who are now relocating to that area.
This is my big concern. Two things. One, I don't think we can really compare this labor from inmates to labor from immigrants, considering inmates aren't spending money in the community and they don't really have control over where they spend their money and what they do or where they live because they're incarcerated. Immigrants who are free to roam around and free to spend money at local businesses and contribute to the economy in different ways and choose where they're working and bargain for this and that and the other are way better for that argument than those who are literally in a cage.
So a lot of immigrants also don't spend their money in the area they live in, right? Remittances are a huge part of the
They'd have to
economy.
Do they not get groceries? Do they not go to the
Well,
store? Do they not buy
no,
food?
but again, it's diminished, right? So like they're sending a lot of money in remittances. There's like some of the I don't know the exact numbers. I'm not going to make it up, but there is a fuck ton of remittances I know that are being sent from immigrant workers in America.
From people,
They
from a
are-
person who sends money back home to people.
Yeah,
It's not as much as you would like. It's not like half your check or anything. It's a little lump sum of money, but it's a pool of money that's being sent in. It's not like anyone's like you couldn't afford to be working a minimum wage job and then send half of that paycheck over back to like you still have to live here. You still have to pay rent.
No,
you still have to
sure.
pay groceries.
Yes, I understand. You're going to have to like pay for rent and taxes.
You
et
just have to
cetera.
exist. Yeah.
And keep in mind, like these prisoners are also paying their taxes. They're paying like 40% right up front, and other fees that get tacked onto that goes into something that we're all paying for, right? The criminal justice system. So they are absolutely paying into the system by working.
To
right?
no
They're
benefit for us.
they're-
though.
into the
And no benefit to
economy.
us. The citizens.
paying into the system is no benefit to us. We're leaving the tax
Yes,
burden
but
on
economy
every
does.
other worker.
We're paying either way.
No. We're not paying either way because if they're working and they're paying a bigger share of that, then we're paying less.
But then you have less people in the community working, which is a bigger burden on the community. Like you're discounting that because the people of the community that you're taking the jobs from now, like these people don't have work, right? And the people that are replacing them aren't paying into the community at all. They're paying into the prison system, sure, but the rest of the community isn't benefiting just because the prison is like existing, right?
But
like
that money, you would agree that people in the community would be the ones having to pay into that prison absent.
We pay either way. Either way,
They're
we have
not
to pay in.
contributing to
You
the
would
local
pay
economy.
less.
No,
Wait, hold on. Ollie,
you wouldn't pay less because the people that are losing the jobs.
If the prisoners are paying more for their own cost of being in prison,
They're not
then-
paying more. They're paying more to the system. The prison system is taking 40%. It's not like they're
Right.
taking 40% and applying it to like the general taxes.
Yeah.
that are like-
No. Hold on. But where does the money for those prisons come from? General taxes, right?
No, now we're saying that we're replacing. Right now, we're saying we're replacing it with like they're working, their wages. They get taxed 40% or 60% depending on whatever it is. And you're saying that that's supposed to offset what we're paying in taxes, like towards the prison system.
It does.
Yeah, except okay, that's true. You're correct, but then you're forgetting the other part where you have less people in the community working within the community. You have less money being spent within the community, so we're still paying for it just another way.
Yeah, I'm not convinced that like that's going to be a
So-
bigger effect than the
Fewer
overall
people.
economic boon.
If
so
they're
here's
prisoners
my-
versus if they're immigrants, fewer people are spending money in the community.
Hold on, real quick. Would you
here's
be in favor of banning remittances then?
Would you ban, for example, if you
No.
had an elderly relative or a disabled relative who needed help who was here, would you really like be against people giving other people money for stuff like that? How much remittances do you really think is happening
that was
among
the
minimum
question.
wage workers?
Yeah, that was the question. How much of my paycheck do you think like I'm giving my family back home? Like how much of it like do you think it could possibly be to people with low skill, low income workers that live in high price like at this point like these low price point apartments, like the worst part of Detroit now is like $900 to $1,000 a month for like a studio or a one bedroom, which is like if you're getting paid $10 an hour, $12 an hour, it's kind of hard to maintain that and send money back home at a certain rate. Like you're maybe
So-
sending like 10% of your paycheck.
Hold
Okay,
on.
wait.
So, hold on.
We have the
I-
most remittances of
I
any
wanna-
country by far.
For sure we do.
So hold on. So here's not as anything. But here's the issue that I have with this. So this is a article from 2021 titled "How Sheriffs Are Extracting Wealth from People in Jail." It goes on to talk about this is a little long, but I'm gonna read like 4 paragraphs of this, so I'll try to do it quickly. California's legislature adopted a bill last year, this would be 2020, that would have limited the price of commissary items in county jails and imposed new constraints on how the sheriffs who run those jails can contract with private companies that provide jail services. Advocates hope that the reform would prevent jails from excessively charging people and ensure that any revenue sheriffs generate through fees is poured into jail services. But Gavin Newsom ended up vetoing this bill. Okay, so I'll skip 2 paragraphs. It says California sheriffs can determine what fees or rates to charge, who to contract with, and on what terms, and they can collect profits in a quote unquote inmate welfare fund. They can spend on programs of their choice. They have used these funds to cover things like staff salaries, for instance. During the fiscal year that ended in 2019, the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department amassed more than $35 million from commissary sales, telephone contracts, and other fees. So this isn't the first time I've heard this. This is the first time I've heard about California having this particular issue. But of these prisons, right? Using the inmates as some sort of profit center and then creating perverse incentives for them, right? So maybe I could agree with our friend Lactoid and anyone else who was like sort of on the side. If like it went straight into like providing jail service, like providing food, right? That if that was the plan, then okay. But I've seen in multiple instances where sheriffs are using that money for their own benefit, right? So like if as a sheriff I can use this to pay salaries, well then I can just use this to increase salaries, right? I don't have to actually. So the benefit that our friend Lactoid has been saying is that, well, this will lower prices, will offset things. Well, if I can put this into my salary fund, right? If my salary starts at 80,000, that's what the I would get if it was just the states paying. But then now I can get in this additional revenue stream. Well, then I can increase salaries, right? Well, now I'm being paid $100,000. This provides perverse incentives for them where they can just have this workforce that they can just garnish their wages and put that into anything. So that's like an issue for me. And I doubt that Alabama has more controls on this than California does. I would be shocked if Alabama was more discerning about where those funds are being used. But it could be the case. Maybe I just don't know. It could be the case. But that's the thing that's a big problem for me. Like it creates a perverse incentive, especially when this pool of workers can't refuse. If it's one thing if they're saying, well, yeah, I really want to work at McDonald's, right? And I accept that my wages are going to be garnished in this way. And that's just like, I'm in prison, so that's just how it's going to be. But if you're saying that, well, you have to work, and you have to make a profit for me, no, I don't like what that looks like. I don't like what it encourages people to do. That's my issue. So again, I don't. There's so many benefits, and I think you guys have talked about it. Blackbeard's talked about it in terms of like recidivism rates. I'm saying that word wrong, I know, but whatever. And like abilities to get skills. And I agree with someone else was saying, I think Aiko was talking about, hey, let's get them certified on things, right? And I think Lacto would agree with me. This is the thing that California is also doing, right? Where it's like denying people the ability to use the skills they've gained once they've left. So for instance, if they were firefighters, right? Like they use inmates to fight fires. They can't use that skill to like apply for a firefighter job. That's the thing that happens in California. It's like crazy. In other places, like if you're like a barber within your jail, you can't use that. Like that doesn't qualify you to be a barber outside of the jail. So like it's like fucking wild. But I think a lot of people would agree like with those reforms, but specifically it's like what are these funds using? Are these funds going to like are these profits going to like a slush fund for the jail, or is it specifically to offset costs? Right. I think that changes things. What do you think?
I think Alabama. I just based on again just looking this up. Right, according to the article, the Alabama Department of Corrections is what takes the money from the inmates working, and that's controlled at the state level. It's not controlled by local sheriffs in Alabama. Local sheriffs can control the jails, but that's not the part of this program. What's part of this program is the prisons, and the prisons are controlled by the Alabama Department of Corrections, which is entirely run at the state level. They have 15 adult correctional facilities, 10 work release centers, and 1 community work center, and they employ 3,300 personnel. So it sounds like Alabama is actually probably better than California on this.
Well, this is whatever's run by the sheriff's office. So this is whatever. So the jails are run by the sheriff's office in general, right? So this is talking about
Not the prisons, though.
Yeah, I
So
know. That's why I said jails. That's why I said jails just now. I said I acknowledge what you said, but the jails are generally run by sheriffs, correct?
Yeah, but the jails aren't the ones sending these workers to McDonald's. It's the prisons.
Are the jails not sending the workers? So they're not using jail workers?
Not according to the article. The article states that the Alabama Department of Education of Corrections, that's the organization run at the state level.
It says that, like, yes, that it's working, and I'm not saying one way or the other. I'm exploring this with you. But like it talks about specifically the prison system. I'm saying that like I'm wondering if Alabama also uses jail inmates as well. You know what I'm saying?
If they do, I'm against it, but I don't know if they do or not.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that. I'm just wondering. But in any
Hey,
case, go ahead.
oh, sorry, I'm gonna go early. I have a really bad headache that just came on.
Okay, have a good one. Thanks for being
So
here.
yeah,
Sorry about that.
thanks. Yeah, no, thanks for having me. See you
Take care,
guys.
be
Bye.
well.
Feel better
Yeah, bye.
soon. Be safe.
Thank you.
Was that headache called Lactoid?
That's why I apologize. That's
Yeah. But so yeah. But would you agree with me on? And I don't know. And I think just because it's being used by a Department of Corrections doesn't mean that it's not being used in places that would be inappropriate. I don't know. I'm not making an accusation. I don't know. That's my problem is how these things have been used in the past. So would you agree with me, Lactoid, that that these funds should specifically be used to offset costs rather than like increase things like work? Okay.
yeah, I'm generally opposed to public sector workers controlling their own salaries, and this is part of the reason why I'm in favor of disbanding all public sector unions and capping their salaries. Because otherwise, you do get situations where you have people like, hey, I'm in control of this organization. I set the salaries. I'd like my salary to be this. I've seen it's not quite the situation, but I have seen it where you have an influential person on a board. Their job is something, and they have control, essentially like a lot of influence over the board, and they can get salary increases just because they can get the people there to vote for their own salaries to increase. No, it's fucked up. Yeah, I would be opposed to that.
Gotcha.
I think we're in all agreement.
Yeah, the one thing that I wanted to address earlier that I was just curious about is the concern that I made about that I rose about how a lot of these companies that are using this labor are, obviously bigger than the communities they're in. They're not, local businesses. Are you at all concerned about some of the profit that they're gaining from this not at all returning to the area in which it is, since you're concerned about remittances about stuff like that? Like a lot of that's just going to be in the central apparatus of the company and might very well, be redispersed to other parts of the company in other states, in other places. So these areas that are already suffering a shortage of economic activity are going to have even less money in circulation, but due to an entity that nobody has control over, as opposed to individual people making their own decisions.
It's not super concerning to me. if somebody's doing a job in a particular place, like even if like yes, them spending the money there and like circulating more money in the community, that's good for that community, right? This is also running with the assumption that we owe anything to these particular communities. I don't think that any community is owed anything. I don't think that any community is owed anything. If your community is failing, move to a better one. But when it comes to that's just people don't move enough. But when it comes to like
it's expensive as shit. I just moved. It was expensive.
Yeah, like I just moved across the states.
Yeah,
bro.
and if you can,
What do you mean?
and if you can move somewhere where you're going to be making more money in a better community with like more jobs, higher paying jobs.
Wait. Do you
Then
think
you should do
better
that.
off? Wait, do you think a community is better off having a bunch of jobs but no income? Like just like the fact that jobs exist in the location.
No,
is
the
like
jobs.
enough.
Wait. Hold on. The job.
So then you owe a community.
Ollie. The people being there doing the job is in of itself a boon to the community, even if they don't spend a penny that they make in that community.
No, it's not. So like,
yes, it is.
If everyone in the community worked, and then they sent all their money outside of the community, they wouldn't be able to afford to work in the community because they can't live there. They don't have money to support themselves to work, right? Because their money is not going into the community. They're not paying rent. They're not living in their community. They're not paying for groceries. They're like all their money is going outwards. Right? Wrong? There's no.
Wait, hold on. But if they're all like coming to a place to work, and then they all have like obviously people have to.
Then that city
somewhere.
Doesn't benefit.
It does because those are jobs in the city being filled.
Yeah. So wait, if the city is just a bunch of Walmarts and everyone's coming from one city over to the Walmart city to work, sure, but then that's not a community. That's just.
But that's not realistic as to what actually happens.
I know.
What happens is a Walmart opens because they're able to have access to cheap labor, and then like not all the workers are going to be immigrants, not all the workers are going to be prisoners, and there's like people who are going to relocate to that area. In order to work at that area. But what I'm saying is like, but hold on. But like, even if it is the case that 100% of all the workers in any given area don't live in that one community, you just have a ghost town. You just have people like go there to work.
Therefore, the city isn't benefiting. So what I'm saying is like, if you have a bunch of people in the community that work for the Walmart, if you have a bunch of people in the community that work for the Walmart, but no one can afford to shop at the Walmart doesn't exist. Therefore, you kind of do owe the community a certain wage in order for you owe it to yourself to keep yourself running. No.
Hold on, but if nobody's there to actually like buy stuff at the Walmart, then it probably wouldn't be a Walmart that would open.
I know, but that's
unless people were traveling, right? But unless people were traveling in for the Walmart, right? So we're talking about service industries because the service industry relies on the fact there's other people there, which is why these inmates are going into these service industries because there are non-prisoners there. You could have a situation in which it's all like migrant workers where they're sending 100% of their money in remittances, but the kind of industry that would be there is probably like
not even that.
Yeah, there'd be factories.
You're creating
agricultural. It would be like farming.
With like having robots working and then this inmate thing, you're creating a ghost town because if these large companies can afford to open up and have essentially free like close to free labor, but like. The people within the community won't be there.
Yeah, no, you're missing something critical. Okay, so a Walmart exists and they have to sell to the community. What happens when the people there don't have as much money to buy things, but the Walmart has to sell things?
The Walmart shuts down.
The Walmart lowers their prices.
I mean, no, it doesn't. The Walmart just doesn't exist in that community. No, it doesn't. Why would the Walmart would lower its prices?
Because the Walmart.
We've never seen that happen anywhere.
We absolutely. Hold on.
Where has Walmart lowered its prices?
Marginally.
Wait. Walmart. Wait, you're just wrong on this. Like different stores across the whole fucking country. Go to Walmart in one state.
How much did they lower their prices?
It's going to depend on market conditions. McDonald's, which is the topic of this discussion, has widely variable prices depending on how each franchise decides to price their items.
Yeah, and
it's entirely
negligible where you are.
It's not negligible. Sometimes it's by a magnitudes. There are in some states McDonald's that the average cost of a burger is 2 to 3 times more than in other places. It's magnitudes difference in prices.
Yeah,
and so.
Keep in mind,
and they are reacting to the market conditions in those communities.
In a lot of these communities, because the Walmart already undercut the competition there, they can lower their prices a bit, but
They don't
not
lower
enough
their
to go with the
prices.
market because they can't shop anywhere
Wait,
else.
they don't lower their prices.
Okay,
Wait,
so
wait, 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 wait,
so
wait,
then
wait, wait. Let me
Walmart
finish
closes
my
down,
point.
and then what
They
happens?
don't lower their prices. They just don't raise them as much as they do in other
No,
places.
that's
The
not-
prices
that's
are
not
always
true.
going up. The prices have never gone down. When is the
That's
price?
not true.
Subway.
Price cuts happen. Price cuts
Subway.
happen.
Okay, when was the last time Subway cut
Does
their
happen, but they're
prices?
small.
Generally speaking, inflation, yes, there's inflationary pressure in the U.S. economy. Prices are generally going up, but there are absolutely due to effects accounting for specific market conditions in specific areas. Yes,
Can you show me a time where it wasn't negligible?
I will find you. I will find you a time in which a company had a sale. Yes, I can do that for you, Ali.
Them having a sale isn't
A
due
sale
to
is a reaction of the market condition. Yes, it is.
No, it isn't. A sale
It
is due to
is,
the
but-
fact. Wait, most sales happen is due to the fact they have overstock because they overpurchase. Their season hasn't
And they
sold
have to
out, so
get
they need to
rid-
get
yes.
rid of their things.
And they have to get rid of it.
Not because of the economics
This is
of
my
the
point.
community.
No, that is the economics of the community. They have too
No,
much
it isn't.
product. They have too much product, and the community wasn't buying as much product before at their old price. So they have to cut down the price in order to sell the product that they do have stockpiled to the community.
No.
That is a company reacting to a market condition in that area.
It's not because they don't have enough money. It's because they have an overstock
I didn't
of
say money.
items
Yes,
that the
it's
community
overstock.
doesn't want to spend their money on.
Why do they have an overstock of items? Because they
Because
couldn't
they
sell.
over prepare and try to oversell.
Because they couldn't sell it at the old price, right?
Yeah, they undersell.
Yes. So
But they're trying to get people in the door to buy more expensive shit, like at Publix or whatever. Like that's like another reason why they do it. But
that could be one reason, sure. But again, this is an example of a company reacting to a market condition. They have this product. They would like to sell the product for $1 billion each. They would like to do that because that's the goal of the company, but they can't because the people in that community, they're not buying it at the old price. So what do they have to do? They have to lower the price.
That's an advertising marketing. It's a marketing method.
It's not just marketing. Sales are not just marketing.
So McDonald's does run offers. Hey, get these 2 for $5 burgers. That's an offer to get more clients into their doors. But you know what happens? That's a limited time offer. That's not a price reduction on an item that they're consistently selling. When it's clothing or when it's food, you don't get to do that because clothes run out of trend, they run out of season, they run out of style. So what happens is there's a limited time where you have a limited time where you're able to sell this product. And if you can't sell the product within the amount of time, then the price gets dropped because the market doesn't want the product. It's not because the community is cheap. Now you will have places
the market
like
is the community.
You will have places like TJ Maxx, Burlington, Marshalls that open up in a community that target the lower economic like communities, right? But it's not that they're lowering their prices; it's that they have a low price to start with, and other places have higher prices than they do. No one's cutting their prices. Like I said,
I just linked you. McDonald's. This is from July 2024.
Is their dollar menu back?
Yeah, well, they're bringing more things onto specific meal deals, and they're cutting the prices specifically because their sales were dropping because people weren't buying as much of their McDonald's because their prices were too high. So they're reducing their prices.
It's not because the community was broke. It's because no one wanted to. It's not worth it to pay that much. They're
not buying it. No, it's not.
There's a difference.
Ali, if they're not buying something, if you're not hold on. If people aren't buying something because the price is too high and you reduce the price, this is reacting to market conditions. If people would buy it at the old price, you would sell it for that. Why would you ever lower your price unless it's to try to get more people to buy it?
Well, let's look
right, but I feel like there's a point in which they reach a point where people, especially in these communities that are, they don't have as many businesses and as much competition, there's a point in which they don't need to lower their prices because people are just going to buy it. Because if you've got a Walmart and you've got like a Dollar General and a Family Dollar in your community, the other two are, in areas where people could walk to them, but they're way more expensive. The Walmart is the cheapest option already. So even if the market conditions have changed, they don't need to lower their prices because people have to buy goods somewhere.
I guess this is like a monopoly concern, which I understand.
That's the eventuality
of
like a lot of these labor issues.
Well, no. This is hold on. A monopoly concern is like fundamentally different than like a remittances concern or people coming in to do work and like not spending their money in that town. These are two different like economic concerns.
Of course.
The monopoly concern as to like, well, Walmart Walmart is the one business. Yeah, the remittances concern, I don't think is a big concern at all. I think that just simply them being there to do a job is providing a service to the community. Would it be better if they spent their money there? For sure, but they're still providing a job to that community at a rate that obviously the business finds profitable. Now, the concern is, well, what if the one business is Walmart and Walmart owns everything and there is no competitor whatsoever? So Walmart can really just milk the community dry. Obviously, they can't like raise their prices too much, otherwise their community is just going to die and then they're going to have to shut down. But like, they can maintain this sort of unfair competitive edge. Yeah, I mean, monopolies are potentially like a market concern, but you could still even use the system to address that. Remember before when I said that what if we gave small businesses first dibs on these low wage workers? You've basically just alleviated any kind of monopoly concern, at least from this program.
I mean, potentially. I just, yeah, it's like I'm not against inmates working, and I don't know if I would be as against it for particular smaller businesses or businesses that relate to public services and stuff like that, or, local stuff. I would not have as much of an issue about. I don't like, it's not like a fundamental issue with people working. I do think that, people, especially if they're going to get paroled soon, or we hope, I don't know, in some of these places, that, they should be able to keep a bit more of the money that they're earning, because they're nearing the end of when they're going to be housed by the prison, and they're nearing when they're going to have to actually have money to exist in society. So these are kind of more like smaller concerns here. Basically, I think that there are ways to have this type of a system be in a way that doesn't cause as much negative effect to communities, but the way that it is now, I think this isn't kosher.
So I found this I was going back because I was wanting to find something specific on Alabama jails, right? I think that most of these articles mix the term prison and like prison inmate and jail inmate. I don't think they actually disambiguate these things. Um, but and wow, I was basically what I was doing is I was using custom date ranges in my searches to um like narrow what I was looking for, because like now all the articles are talking about Alabama using the inmates for McDonald's, right? Then you go back a little further in time, and it's like, oh, here's of all the sexual abuse scandals happening in Alabama prison and jails, and then you go back further in time, then it's like another thing, like Alabama. I mean, I don't think
A lot of
anyone here is
problems.
surprised. Yeah, in terms of like how it treats its prisoners, legendarily awful. But so I couldn't break out specifically what I was looking for in terms of like prison rather than jail inmates, right? To compare that with what California was doing. However, I did run into this. This is an old story I remember from a long time ago. Um, so it says Alabama sheriffs feed inmates on $1.75 a day. Um, so back in the day of chain gangs, Alabama passed a law that gave sheriffs $1.75 a day to feed each prisoner in their jails, and the sheriffs got to pocket anything that was left over. More than 80 years later, most Alabama counties still operate under the system with the same $1.75 a day allowance, and some sheriffs are actually making money on top of their salaries. But like, how can you do that? They can how could anyone turn a profit feeding men and women for an entire day on less than the price of Coke and a bag of Fritos? Sheriff practice a depression-style frugality and rely on such things as day-old bread, cut-rate vegetables, and cheap inmate labor. And it goes on and on to describe the system and how like awful the food is. But again, they're still profiting off this. This is what I'm saying about
That's a big problem.
perverse incentives. That when you set up a system like this, now this is separate from the system we were discussing, right? This is separate from that. But if you give them a chance to run these funds however they like, and tell them specifically, oh, you can just hold on to the rest. Well, then of course they're gonna get the cheapest, most disgusting food they can get their hands on, right? Just enough to keep the prisoners alive, and then even not really, because as I was going back in time, there were all the reports about the deteriorating conditions in Alabama prisons and prisoners dying, right? Just like just pick a date range, right, and go back in time, and there's a report about how awful Alabama prisons and jails are as well. But this is just another example of that, where uh, again you give these people control over this a captive audience that can't like rebel, who is unsympathetic to the public, right? Then they can get away with these things forever. So this isn't to be clear. I'm not like trying to I disagree with anything like our friend Lactoid has been saying. I'm just like adding on to this and how bad these things are treated. I'll put this link in our group.
What's wrong with so like one small nitpick. What's wrong with day old bread? Like I eat week old bread. Like what the I just what's the problem with
Yeah,
that?
you're a fucking weirdo though.
There's
You're
one
like, you're a
ply
fucking
toilet
weirdo.
paper.
Wait. You guys open up like a loaf of bread and you're like, oh, I gotta eat all this today. Like no, like that lasts like a whole week.
Did they mean like
How do you eat bread?
day past when it's supposed to, the latest time in which it's supposed to be used, or day past it was baked? Because if you have the bread and it's got a shelf life of a week, and then after it's gone stale, that's what they're using, and that's what they mean by that. That's different than if it's literally one day.
There's also a difference between like real bread, which basically gets stale in a day, and stuff like loaded with preservatives, which is what we tend to think of when we go to the supermarket and we buy bread and we keep it in our kitchen for a week. You couldn't do that with actual, like, if you baked your own bread and then like you would want to eat it that day.
Wait, so they get fresh baked bread? That doesn't sound right.
Well, no, they're getting stuff.
They got to get the same kind of preservative laden slop that we eat. Otherwise, like I'm gonna have a problem with this.
Sell by date.
Only Wonder Bread.
Preservative laden
Yeah,
shit.
when they say
Look,
when they say day old bread,
Also,
in this case, they
and-
mean
Wait. These people. Okay, hold on. I'm sorry. Like, if there's no mold on it, okay. If there's mold in it, I won't eat it. Okay, but like, come the fuck on. Like, I eat shit a few days past its expiration. I eat like milk and meat and yogurt. As long as it looks and tastes fine, like I'll eat it. Like
That's
what
wild.
it.
I like
That's
how
wild. What?
I like how in other contexts you're germophobic, but when it comes to food, it's like
Yeah,
just
it's like,
shovel
fuck
it in your
it.
mouth.
I bought it. I'm not gonna throw it away
Yeah,
unless
I
it's
mean,
gonna
like
hurt
if
me.
if it fell on the ground, got a little fuzz on it. I mean, it's like not
Yes.
a big deal. Why you give it?
Wait. This is
also
good for immune. This is
depends.
good for your immune system.
No.
There's a
Yes,
point where-
yes, yes,
No,
yes.
no,
Also,
no,
it
no.
depends on the environment in
You
which
just
I
triggered
guess
Corey.
things are contained in for how long it takes for something to get bad.
It's
I
bread.
have a gross story. So a house I used to live in had black mold under the floor, and I didn't know about it, and none of us knew about it because it was underneath the floor. And bread would get moldy in 2 days.
Mhm.
It was disgusting, and I was just like, "What happened? Why is it like this?" And then the floor gets picked up, and it's moldy under there, and it's like, no wonder. But yeah, if there's shit going on, if it's not clean, if there's mold in the air, obviously stuff can go bad a lot faster.
Okay, fine. We just give them cans of beans. No complaints. Canned beans last forever.
that is unironically healthier than bread.
Look, it's dirt cheap. I'm serious. Let's just give them each one can of beans a day. 2 maybe. I'm feeling generous.
I mean, Alabama people aren't going to complain about beans and rice.
And a potato. Look, milk and potatoes. You can live off that, right? So potato, beans, and water.
Matt Damon did it in space, so why not prisoners?
Mm.
Look, it's prison. It's not supposed to be a fun place. Like, I'm not saying we should like.
Well, like I
torture
said,
them.
people are used to beans and rice. I mean, actually, that's not necessarily a bad meal. We can probably want to give them a little bit of meat protein, just to round out their amino acids.
Meat
and,
and contribute to the torture of animals? Absolutely not.
Mm.
They're going to be on a vegan diet.
Lab grown. You could
It's
give them
so
jobs
expensive.
growing their own meat.
I've thought about this actually. What if we just made them work on the farms to grow their own food, and that would teach them self-sufficiency and self-reliance? That's kind of a good idea, right? And now
That's
they got
not bad.
farming skills, and now they can work as farmhands when they get out.
Yeah.
Hey, and Orange is the New Black people fought for those greenhouse jobs.
They did. If Netflix sells us anything, that's how real inmates act.
They even stashed a dead body in there for a while.
Ooh.
Lactoid and all the benefits of slavery. Okay, I appreciate it. Yeah, so we'll leave it here. Thanks all for coming through and having this conversation. Fuck, never. Whatever, it's fine. Okay, yeah, whatever, it's fine. But thanks all for coming through and having this conversation. This was a lot of fun. Let's give an outro to all these fantastic individuals. Our friend Lactoid. Thank you for coming through and fighting with us, fighting with me, really. I mean, let's be honest. But I do appreciate you, friend. Like I said previously.
Yeah, no, Prime, thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate you as always, and everybody here. Thank you. Never hesitate from challenging me, and I will always fight back if I find it necessary. So don't worry about that. If you like what I had to say, you can find me at Lactoid TV on Twitch, Twitter, and YouTube. And then Prime, I think at some point we also need to have that Ukraine discussion that we've been brought up a few times, but we just haven't gotten around to it. But I think that'd be good at some point for a discussion for a topic.
Yeah. Well, you specific the thing specifically is that you had like different information than our friend I think Aiko, right? Like Aiko, you had a disagreement with Lactoid on Ukraine. I think that was you, right?
Well, I
Probably.
certainly do disagree with on Ukraine. Yeah, I don't know that it was unique to anyone else's disagreement with them, but yeah, I did.
Okay.
I disagree with probably 90% of Americans on the voraciousness of how much they love Ukraine. I'm the most Ukraine skeptic, I guess, the best way to put it.
Yeah.
I would love to talk to you about that.
You're
one
not sure it
day.
exists.
Oh, okay. I mean, it's a tough one to talk about because I don't know how many of our general group is educated on that. But maybe we'll have to make a separate thing. I don't know. But we do. We
Yeah,
do need to-
I'll do Ukraine anytime.
Damn,
Have it
he
be a
just called
teaching
you
and a
all
learning
stupid.
moment. I'd love to be here
That's
for
what
a
I did.
learning moment. I want to see what side I land on.
I'm relatively red on it, so I'm down.
Now you're not so confident. Okay, I see you. But no, it's fine.
We're going back to
I always
2011,
mention my
guys.
language.
But yeah, I would love to have a conversation. Maybe we could do it in the Reverie. I'll have to put some thought into that. But yeah, thanks so much. And let's go to our friend, Ali. Thanks for being here, Ali.
Yeah, I mean, this is honestly one of my favorite conversations and topics because it proves to me that just like large American businesses cannot exist without essentially slave labor. They just can't do it. They can't function in the market that they want to create. They can't function in against anyone, right? They're afraid of the small guy, which is why they have to do all these little tricks and schemes in order to stay afloat. It's just I find it funny.
Maximizing profits. They
Yeah,
can
you know,
technically exist, but not at their current,
it's
ratios.
pussy capitalism is what it is. And it's just like, you rigged the system and now you're playing the game and saying, well, we're the best players. Are you? You have the pinball machine tilted. But yeah, you can find me at Sociologic on Twitch, Twitter, and YouTube. Thank you for having me on, Prime.
Yeah, absolutely. Corey, thanks for being here, friend.
It's
Yes.
biological automation, just to be clear. But go ahead, Corey.
Yeah, as always, grateful to be here, and try to never take it for granted. And I would potentially want to be included in the Ukraine debate, but I would actually need warning because I can become educated on it. I'm definitely not educated on it now, for
Me
sure.
and you, we'll be there to learn. We'll be the deciding factor.
But I would need a little bit more time than 2 hours notice to be prepared on it. Ideally.
I feel like that's a shot at me. Okay, I accept.
No. More than 24 hours, 48 hours notice.
Okay,
At least a couple of days, probably.
Yeah. Set it up.
As always, it's great. You can find me on Twitch, Corey Campbell 84, Twitter, X, Instagram, YouTube is Corey Campbell. Katya, I coverage. Ali, Lactoid, always a pleasure. Love you, Prime.
Me too. Katya, thank you so much. You've been fantastic. You've been a really great addition. We're really happy to have you.
Thank you. I try. Yeah, so I am Premier Katya on X, Twitter, whatever the heck it is. And that's it for now. So, yep, good conversation with you guys. And you know what? A nice discussion about the free market and what parts of the market should be free and which ones kind of counteract that. As well as the other conversation before that about JD Vance and the horny Nazis or whatever that was. Good talk, guys.
I was wondering, because I was looking at them. Your tattoos on your collarbones. What are those?
It's just barbed wire. I got that when I was edgy in college.
Is it
Badass.
is it after the Pamela Anderson movie Barbed Wire? Classic.
No.
Most people
God.
don't know that. I wouldn't
I
expect
got
anybody
it.
to think.
I remember that one. That's an old one.
Just Google
that's
it.
an old reference.
That was like one of the few
Exists.
movies like that where Pam Anderson was like the main star. Barbed Wire.
Why Pamela Anderson and you watched it?
No, I didn't watch. But
He just knows of it.
no,
Research.
another
He heard
reason
about it from a friend.
the '90s were the greatest decade because it's in the '90s.
Yeah, it's like OnlyFans before OnlyFans became a thing. I get it. Yeah, sure.
Is that a heart in your throat?
Like a radiation
It's Mickey
symbol.
Mouse.
It's a what?
No, it's
Radiation
not.
symbol?
Yes.
It's a hidden Mickey.
Okay. So you were
Mhm.
definitely that was your edgy face. Gotcha. But no, fair
That
enough.
was after that, but
I was
well,
just
I'm still in it. I've never left. I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe I'm in it, but like I've just been like gaslighting myself into thinking I'm not edgy. I don't know.
okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. I was just curious, but thank you for answering my question. And Aiko, thank you for coming through, man. I always appreciate having you here, friend.
Oh yeah, sure, no problem. I just wanted to respond to the last thing that you put into the group DM, which was about Alabama sheriffs. I think I just typed it in as a response to. They can feed their prisoners on $1.75 a day. Okay, fine, so long as the sheriffs eat the same thing and no more than the prisoners do. Make that part of the rule.
I agree. Well, Lacto, why would you shake your head? You don't like public workers anyway. But why don't you punish them, and then maybe get less public workers?
Because hold on, if they're getting, we have to like attract people for the job if we consider the job to be necessary, and they can spend their money however they want. I'm not going to put on a free man a requirement that they bought
I'm
a
just
certain
saying
amount
they
of money.
follow the golden rule, right?
No, but it's
Eat how you wish others to eat.
well, okay, well then let's put them in cages too, right? It's the same thing, right? No, obviously not.
Nice.
Yeah, actually,
inmates
I
sad.
said that during the Arpaio years. If Arpaio can spend a week the way that the prisoners do without complaint, then okay.
Make it a month and we'll talk.
Dude, by the way,
Oh
And
yeah,
it's live
yeah.
streamed, and it's live streamed.
so I don't agree with this, just to be clear, but it does remind me.
Be
So
funny.
Christopher Hitchens was he refused to call waterboarding torture, and then somebody actually invited him to be waterboarded.
Oh yes, it changed his mind.
And
Yeah.
he did it. He did it. The man fucking did it. He actually went and got waterboarded, and then afterwards he was like, "Yeah, it's torture."
Based.
Yeah, and famously, it was Hannity that said the same thing, and he was challenged, and he said, "Okay, he'll do it," and then he wouldn't do it. He backed out. He wouldn't do
He's
it.
no Christopher Hitchens.
And yet he continued to maintain that it's not torture. That it was just a little splash in the face. Yeah.
Yeah,
He's
just a
afraid
little-
of water.
Yeah, he
And-
was definitely no.
Okay,
Chris
so I'm
Hitchens.
ignorant
Yeah.
on this. What is like the big deal? I understand that it is a big deal. I'm not, but like, what is it?
It simulates drowning. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Okay,
it's
so
like
it's just
over
constantly
time
throwing
as
like
well.
buckets or
so-
like loads of water in the face, and so you
Well,
can't breathe.
normally what they'll do is they'll lay you back on a table,
Yeah.
and then they like use like a cloth and like press it against your face with water, and it simulates this feeling of drowning.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's like it's hard to breathe because as well, like if you like really try to breathe in too much, then the thing gets like sucked into your mouth and nose, and it's harder to breathe. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's apparently pretty rough. It doesn't sound like it, but like from
Yeah, I've
all
just like never
accounts,
like thought about it.
simulated drowning. All right, so
Well,
I'm gonna
we know what we're gonna do on stream now, Ollie, for next week.
Simulate it.
I'll send you guys off to a different channel. This is Roko. She's a big creator. I watch her stuff sometimes. But